money out of the bank today. Leaving money in the bank seems to be getting more and more dangerous each day that passes. Inflation is devaluing our currency, and if we were all to run to the bank to pull out our cash, they probably wouldn't have enough money to give us. For us to understand what we should do in order to protect ourselves and our family's money, we need to understand the history of money. And the earliest form of trading and how we used to trade goods is we would have specific goods to trade for other people's goods. This was the earliest form of currency. So if you had rice and I had beans and I wanted your rice, I would give you a portion of my rice for a portion of your beans. But that just happens to be very ineffective. You can't really transfer that form of currency across borders because my rice or my beans might spoil. Or maybe you don't want beans, which means I have to go to the guy in the corner to trade my beans for his corns in order to give you corn so I can get rice. As we as a civilization improved and we advanced, the next form of currency that appeared would be metals, precious metals. So we had gold, we had silver, copper as well, but the two main ones were gold and silver. And that comes with its own form of problems. Metal is heavy to carry around. So if you're trying to go across borders and you have that bag of just metals weighing you down, that's very cumbersome. And it's also very easy to rob. So you would have pirates and you would have highway robbers waiting for somebody to pass to take away their gold and their silver. In order to protect ourselves against stuff like that, what we eventually came up with was the earliest form of banking. So here's what we did, and this was around the Middle Ages, give or take, right? Dark Ages. So what we did is we would take our gold and take our silver and we would deposit that at the earliest form of what we know today as a bank. And that location that secured our money in their vaults would give us a paper note that said, Mr. Elias has X amount of gold stored at our bank. And whenever we wanted to, we could go to the bank and take out that amount of gold. Eventually, people started to see this paper note as currency. It was backed by gold. The earliest paper money was backed by gold. So we would start to trade those notes. Like, oh, I have one note in gold. I'll give you this note for the beans, for the rice. And the bank also started to catch on to that. And they noticed that people weren't really checking how much gold or silver they had in the bank. So what they would do is they would start to lend people money. They would give them notes, which is why in mortgages today we have promissory notes. So they would lend notes to people for them to buy their houses, to buy their horses, buy their carriages, whatever they were buying at the time, right? They would lend this note, but it got to the point where they lent more money, more notes than what they had in the bank. Now they had outstanding a lot of money and none in the bank to give back to the people if everyone went to the bank to take out their money. And that actually did happen. There's actually a term for that today, which we know as a bank run. That's when a bunch of people go to the bank at one time to pull out money and the bank doesn't have enough money to give. Which brings us to today, modern era. Governments give out paper money, paper currency. And for the longest time, it's always been backed by something. In Portugal, it was backed by coffee. America, for a long time also, had their currency, the dollar, backed by gold. And another country could come in and exchange that dollar for gold. But in the 1970s, America came off the gold standard and essentially became a fiat currency.
Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
The dollar is backed by nothing except for the trust that people have in the government. That's where we're at today. Your dollar is worth nothing if people decide to say it one day, right? So here's what you should be doing to protect your money, to protect your currency from inflation, from it being devalued. Just because the government took away the physical asset behind their currency doesn't mean you have to. So what you can be doing to protect your money and to protect your family from potential inflation, from potential dollar devaluation, right? And you hear stories of China trying to take the dollar away as the world's reserve currency, because the world still uses the dollar, and 60% of the world's trade is still managed through the dollar because it's a high value currency. But you never know what can happen over time. So instead of leaving your money in the bank, you should invest in physical assets. This is real estate. Gold is an option. It's one I don't recommend. You can invest in companies via stock. Although people feel that stocks is actually something dangerous, that's not the fact. If you're investing in companies that are essential to survival, and I'm talking about food here, right? Waste management. If you're investing in those companies, people need those companies to continue. Whatever prices those companies charge in the future, people are gonna pay for it. People need a place to live. Investment properties is probably the best place to put your money. And here's why you want to do this. Current laws state that the bank only have to keep 10% of your money actually stored in the bank. The other 90%, they can do whatever they want with it. So if you have $1,000 that you've placed in the bank is only forced to keep $100 in the bank to give you back. So imagine if 1,000 people go to the bank to pull out $1,000 and they only have $100 for each person, the bank fails. That's what happened with SVB Bank, right? And that's what's likely to happen to a few other banks as well. So protect your currencies, protect your family by investing in physical assets. Bring your cash back to being backed by physical assets. Watch this next video here if you're interested in learning how you can make money with these awesome side hustles. And once you make that cash, put it into physical assets. Take your money out of the bank today.